And we're looking at appraisals now. I love this picture here. I've just Googled the word appraisal and got this image up because appraisals are all about making an assessment, and it's an assessment about an employee's performance. So this is the specification objective, and this is Unit 2. So an appraisal is a formal method of assessing an employee's overall performance, and it can be, sometimes you have yearly appraisals, sometimes they're over shorter periods, so quarterly appraisals would be over 3-month periods. Sometimes as well you might have an appraisal within the first 6 weeks of starting a job to see how someone's settling in and what they've achieved. I think this is a very famous example of appraisals happening in Lord Alan Sugar's Apprentice series. And when they come to the board meeting, they're asked questions about their performance and how it went, and what went well, what didn't go so well. And this is really appraising and assessing how they've performed in that task. But they do take time and effort. So why do we carry out appraisals? Well, a number of reasons, really. We need to review the employee's performance. So we need to compare it to the targets that had been set for them, the targets and objectives, and see whether they've achieved it. Because if we're paying based on performance, so if we're giving out bonuses or we're offering salary increases, we need to make sure that we've got some justification for that, and we need to see if they have achieved their targets and their goals, because I'm assuming if they haven't achieved their targets and goals, you're not going to be giving those pay bonuses. Another reason is you'll want to identify issues and any concerns that relates to the employee's performance, so you can nip them in the bud and stop them from happening. And that can be very motivational. Motivation, I'm just thinking, I've just said the word motivational, but I'd actually written motivation there. So this can provide motivation for the employee because they get to talk their issues through with someone, and employees tend to react better to situations where they can brainstorm, they can talk through ideas, they can express some of their concerns, some of their frustrations. They'll probably be doing this with the line manager as well, and the line manager might be able to offer suggestions to help improve their situation. They might be very experienced, the line manager, so they've gone through this situation before with another employee, and they can help them. But there is a famous saying, it's good to talk, and we tend to find that employees that have more opportunities to talk through issues with their line managers are much happier and they're more motivated. Another issue is that we want to identify the employee's development and training needs, and this is all about continuous improvement. I've put down there as well that word Kaizen that comes in the operations section of the course. So we're always trying as a business to improve, and we don't want our staff to stay what we call static, to stay where they are. We want them to be able to continue improving. If they feel like they're improving every year, there's more chance that they're going to stay with the organisation that they're with, because no one likes to become static and stagnant and be in exactly the same job for the next 30 years. That would be really, really boring. People like learning, they like getting it better and improving and learning new skills. So an appraisal can be a really good time to make sure that you've identified what would be the best method of training for that employee, because remember from the last presentation I did, training is really, really expensive. So if you can pinpoint the training that an employee needs and provide it for them, you can be a bit more efficient with that training budget or the amount of money that you have, because not everybody needs all of the same training, because lots of people, all the employees, will have different experiences and skills. So the other section is just about how do businesses carry out appraisals. So there's lots of different ways, but these are the most common ways. So in the textbook, this is called a superior method. It just means that you're assessed, or you have your appraisal with one of your superiors. But usually in businesses, they don't call it a superior appraisal. It's called a line manager appraisal. So basically it's a discussion with the manager, and they go through their performance and maybe a series of questions and how they're getting on and how they've met their targets, and they might be asked to bring some information as well with them. You know, it could be like sales targets or production targets or things like that. Another method, now this isn't necessarily on its own, most businesses will do this along with a line manager appraisal, but a self-appraisal would be where employees are given the opportunity to write down their thoughts and justify how they think they performed and whether they've achieved their targets or objectives, and it can be in the form of a questionnaire as well. Now, this is a really good method of appraisal because people like their own views to be taken into consideration. That can be very motivational. But when you're using appraisal to determine somebody's pay, you probably do need a line manager just making sure that every person's done a fair self-assessment or self-appraisal of their own performance, because some people are very optimistic and they're very positive about themselves. Some people are a little bit pessimistic. They might be quite negative about themselves, and you don't want it to be unfair based on someone's personality. You know, if they're very confident in their own ability, they're obviously going to, you know, think they're wonderful and brilliant, and yes, I should definitely get a bonus. If someone's very insecure about their own performance, they might have done a really good job, but they're just not recognizing how good a job they've done. And then this is quite a modern form of appraisal, peer appraisal, and this is where colleagues give feedback on other colleagues on the same level. So it would be all on the same level. You know, you're not necessarily giving feedback to your manager, although that can take place as well. That's called a 360 form of appraisal. But a peer appraisal, you're giving feedback to people that are on the same level as you, the same hierarchical level in the organisational structure. Now this one I would definitely recommend. So if you've got a friend who's also doing business studies with you, why don't you have a go at writing the answer to a past paper and get them as your friend to mark it, because you'll probably get lots and lots of feedback from your teachers, but peer appraisal can be really good as well. And it's useful to get some feedback from a friend who you trust, and they're going to be, you know, constructive with their feedback, and somebody as well who you feel that you can learn from. That doesn't necessarily need to be the cleverest person in the classroom. It can just be somebody who can explain something to you really well. So I definitely recommend that. That's a really good kind of revision technique. And if you can just maybe do a 9-mark question, give it to them to read and say, well, what would you give that? And what do you think of that? And if you can read their 9-mark answer to a question as well, that's even more beneficial. Now, this is an old TV series that used to be on, but if you Google The Office, it's got Ricky Gervais in it, as you can see there. If you Google The Office and appraisal, this clip should come up, and it's a very funny clip about an appraisal. And in it, this person here, I think his name's Keith, he's done a self-appraisal form, and his line manager here is going through it with him. So it's a bit of a mix between these two methods, but it's a very funny scene. So you might want to watch that to give yourself a bit of comic relief while you're revising.